I never thought I'd be 28 and still sharing a two-bedroom apartment with two roommates. Not in the fun, messy, early 20s kind of way, more like the there's no other option way. I've got a corner of a shared bedroom, a curtain rod strung up for privacy, and a shelf that doubles as a nightstand and pantry. I work full-time. I have a degree. And still, I feel like I'm treading water in an ocean that only gets deeper. I used to imagine a version of adulthood where I'd have some semblance of control, where my life wouldn't feel like a constant reaction to one financial emergency after another. Instead, it's like I'm always waiting for the next bill to hit like a punch I didn't see coming. Rent went up again this year, another $150 a month. My job? A small publishing company. Passion work, sure. But raises? Not in this economy. It's not that I'm irresponsible. I budget like it's a religion. I know the exact date and amount of every automatic withdrawal. I haven't bought new clothes in over a year, and my idea of a splurge is a $4 latte once a month. My phone is 3 years old and cracked, but as long as it turns on, it's staying. I've canceled every subscription that isn't essential. I ride the bus. I cook almost every meal at home. And still, every month feels like a tightrope walk over a pit I'm just praying not to fall into. When I do fall, when something unexpected comes up, like the cavity I couldn't ignore or the vet bill when my roommate's cat swallowed a shoelace, I go deeper into the cycle. Credit card. Minimum payments. Interest that sneaks up like rust. It builds in the background while I'm trying to just keep my head above water. There's a psychological weight to it. It's not just the logistics of juggling bills, it's the constant, low-grade fear. Every choice is measured in risk. Can I afford to visit my family this month? What if I get sick and can't work for a week? What if my landlord decides to sell? It's exhausting in a way that never fully lifts. Even when I'm not actively dealing with a problem, it's always there, humming under the surface like a warning. Sometimes I think about what I thought life would look like by now. I used to dream of writing full-time, novels, short stories, maybe even teaching creative writing. I imagined quiet mornings with coffee and a view, my own place, maybe a dog. I'd save for vacations. I'd help my parents. I'd decorate for Christmas. Now? I write in 15-minute pockets before work or late at night when I should be sleeping. I keep the heat low in winter, wear 2 hoodies, and tell myself I'm just being environmentally conscious. I ignore invitations to birthday dinners I can't afford, and when I do go out, I nurse one drink all night and hope no one notices. I've learned to smile through it, to say, just trying to save, like it's a quirky personality trait, not a necessity. And I'm one of the lucky ones. I don't have student loans because I got a scholarship and worked 3 jobs through college. I don't have kids. I'm healthy, mostly. But even with all that, it feels impossible to move forward. Like I've been placed on a treadmill set just a little faster than I can run. The worst part is how normalized it's become. My friends are all in similar boats, teachers, nonprofit workers, freelancers. We joke about how we can't afford therapy, then trade advice like amateur counselors. We cheer when someone pays off a credit card, when someone negotiates a $2 raise. We celebrate crumbs because the feast feels like a fantasy. I try not to be bitter, but it creeps in sometimes, when I see influencers in their early 20s buying houses or people I went to college with coasting on family wealth. I tell myself not to compare, but it's hard not to feel like the system was never built for people like me. Hardworking, yes. Smart, yes. But born without a safety net, trying to build one from scratch on a threadbare salary. Still, I cope. I keep going. I write, even if no one reads it yet. I keep a journal where I scribble hopes for a future that still feels possible, even if I can't see the path clearly. I walk a lot. It's free, and it helps. Sometimes I sit by the river and just breathe, because that doesn't cost anything either. I dream smaller these days. A 1-bedroom apartment. A used car that doesn't break down. A savings account that doesn't hover near zero. Maybe one day, a dog. And, still, I dream bigger too, quietly. I still believe in the power of words. I still believe I'll find a way to write stories that matter. I still think about love, about community, about building something lasting. But mostly, I take it one day at a time. That's the only way to survive this economy. One rent check, one bus ride, one grocery run, one tiny victory at a time. I don't know what the future holds. But I'm still here. I'm still trying. And maybe that's enough, for now. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. I used to think that if I followed the rules, go to college, work hard, be smart with money, things would eventually get easier. I guess a lot of us did. But I'm 27 now, and I feel like I'm constantly treading water in a sea that keeps getting deeper. I live in a small one-bedroom apartment just outside the city. Rent takes up over half my monthly income. I've calculated it 100 different ways, shuffled bills like cards, stretched paychecks until they feel like rubber bands about to snap. It doesn't matter how carefully I plan, something always breaks. My car needed new brakes last month, and just like that, my budget disintegrated. I paid half the electric bill and hoped the other half could wait. I work 2 jobs. My main job is full-time at a digital marketing agency, and it pays just enough to keep me above water, but not enough to really breathe. On evenings and weekends, I do food delivery, Uber Eats, DoorDash, whatever gets me a few more dollars. I used to feel embarrassed seeing someone I knew when I was delivering, but now I just nod, like, yeah, this is real life. No filters, no pretenses. The economy feels like a machine built to grind people like me down. Prices go up, groceries, gas, rent, everything, except wages. I try to shop smart, generic brands, discount stores, meal prep. But no matter how frugal I am, it feels like I'm just surviving, not living. My pantry has more ramen than any adult should admit. I skip meals sometimes to stretch my money, especially near the end of the month. And forget about saving. My savings account might as well be a myth, something I tell myself I'll prioritize next month. I used to dream of owning a little house one day. Nothing big, just a cozy space with a garden, maybe a dog. I had a Pinterest board full of design ideas. Now, I don't even open that board. It hurts too much. The idea of saving for a down payment feels laughable. I can't even afford to fix my broken toaster right now. Even dating feels like a luxury. I can't afford dinners out, and I'm too exhausted most days to even think about meeting new people. My last relationship ended partly because of the stress. Money was always a shadow in the room, whispering during arguments, showing up on grocery receipts and credit card statements. Love doesn't pay the bills, and stress doesn't make you a better partner. Emotionally, it's like carrying a weight I can't put down. Some days, I wake up with this heavy pressure on my chest, like I'm already behind before my feet hit the floor. I scroll through social media and see people traveling, buying homes, announcing promotions. I try to be happy for them, but it's hard not to compare. It's like I missed a train that everyone else managed to catch. I'm tired all the time. Not just physically, though that too, I run on caffeine and willpower, but emotionally, spiritually. It's exhausting to constantly calculate, constantly worry. Every decision I make is run through this mental filter. Can I afford this? Even tiny joys, a cup of coffee from a cafe, a movie ticket, become sources of guilt. I've started lying to friends sometimes. When they ask me to hang out and I say I'm busy, what I really mean is I can't afford to go. I hate that. I miss just being able to enjoy people without having to explain or excuse. But pride is a funny thing. It keeps you silent even when you want to scream. I try to cope in small ways. I write in a journal. I take long walks and listen to music. I've learned to find comfort in cheap things, library books, nature, candles from the dollar store. I stretch joy like I stretch my dollars, thin, but still there. And I remind myself that I'm not alone. That helps a little. I talk to my younger sister, who's still in college, and she's already scared. She sees me and wonders what her future will look like. I want to be hopeful for her, but I also don't want to lie. I tell her to study something practical, to get internships, to network. All the things I did, honestly. Still, I cross my fingers for her, like that might make the difference. Sometimes I imagine what I'd do if I wasn't buried under bills and stress. I'd go back to school, maybe. Get a master's in something I love, maybe creative writing. I used to write short stories for fun. I haven't done that in years. Who has time to chase dreams when you're chasing rent? Still, I haven't given up entirely. There's this tiny ember inside me that refuses to go out, even when everything feels cold and hard. I think that's what keeps me moving. That, and the belief, however fragile, that things can change. Maybe not today. Maybe not even next year. But someday. In the meantime, I wake up, put on a brave face, and keep going. Because I have to. Because there's no other choice. And because, despite everything, I still believe I deserve a life that's more than just survival. Some days I swear I can hear the ticking of my bank account, like it's mocking me. Tick, there goes the electricity bill. Tick, bus fare. Tick, my share of the rent. I don't even look at my account anymore unless I absolutely have to. It's like checking the weather during a storm, what's the point? I'm 27, and I thought I'd have more figured out by now. Not rich or anything, just stable. When I was younger, I imagined having a tiny apartment with plants by the window and a little dog who greeted me when I got home. I thought I'd travel. Maybe go back to school for something I loved, like writing or psychology. But that dream is on pause, indefinitely. Right now, my life feels like I'm constantly patching holes in a sinking boat. Every time I plug one, another opens up. I work full-time at a marketing agency. It sounds fancier than it is. I make $19.50 an hour, no benefits, no overtime pay. They call it contract to hire, but it's been 8 months, and nothing's changed. I do social media content, copywriting, light design work. Basically, I do the job of 3 people, but for the pay of 1. When I brought up a raise, my manager gave me that tight-lipped smile and said, "Let's revisit this in the next quarter." That was 2 quarters ago. Rent just went up again. I split a 2-bedroom with a friend, and we're still barely scraping by. Groceries have become this mental math challenge. I'll stare at a can of beans and think, protein, 99 cents, 3 meals. I haven't bought meat in months unless it's the discounted kind they slap a bright orange sticker on because it expires tomorrow. Every decision I make is filtered through this exhausting cost-benefit lens. Can I afford this? Is it worth it? What if I need that $7 later? And it's not just the big stuff, it's death by 1,000 cuts. My student loan payments resumed last fall. $213 a month. I called to ask for an income-based repayment plan, and the guy on the phone sighed like I'd asked for his kidney. My phone screen cracked, but I'm using it anyway because fixing it would cost what I spend on food for a week. My shoes have holes in them. I wear them anyway. What no one really tells you about financial pressure is how it seeps into your identity. It's not just that I can't go out for drinks or buy new clothes. It's the way I stop seeing myself as someone with potential. I used to write poetry late at night, imagining I'd publish something one day. Now, I come home from work and collapse on the couch, too tired to think. I can't remember the last time I felt creative. It's like part of me is going dormant. Dating? Forget it. I can't afford to split a $50 dinner, let alone pay for it. I've canceled plans with friends so many times I think they've stopped asking. It's not that I don't want to see them, it's just that I can't justify a $30 Uber and a $12 cocktail when that money could go toward my credit card. My social life has been boiled down to texting, memes, and pretending everything's fine. And there's this shame I carry, like a shadow. I feel guilty for not doing better, even though I'm trying as hard as I can. My parents say things like, just save a little each paycheck, and I want to scream. Save what? I'm already cutting everything that isn't essential, and still I find myself choosing which bill to delay so I can make it to payday. I do have coping mechanisms, I guess. I journal a lot, not in a deep or poetic way, more like a brain dump. Just putting the anxiety somewhere else for a minute helps. I walk when I can, listen to music that makes me feel like maybe things will change. Sometimes I'll scroll job listings and imagine a future where I'm making $60,000, maybe even working remotely, living somewhere cheaper. But even that hope feels dangerous, like giving myself a taste of something I can't afford to want too much. I keep thinking about how everyone says the economy is recovering, but I don't feel it. Prices keep going up, wages don't. I'm scared, honestly, scared that this isn't temporary. What if this is it? What if adulthood is just this long hallway of trade-offs, where joy becomes a luxury and survival is a full-time job? Still, I dream. Quietly. I imagine someday having enough to stop living week to week. To take my mom on a vacation she never got to have. To buy new clothes without calculating hours of work in my head. To wake up and not feel like I'm already behind before I even leave the house. But for now, I keep going. I wake up. I go to work. I keep one eye on the future, one foot in the present, and both hands juggling the math of just getting by. I used to think life would look different by now. Not better, necessarily, but more stable. I'm 27, and every day feels like a tightrope walk over a pit that keeps getting wider, deeper, and darker. I graduated 5 years ago with a degree in communications and a mountain of student loans, about $68000. Back then, I thought I'd figure it out with time. You know, get an entry-level job, work hard, climb up. That's what we were told, work hard, play by the rules, and you'll be okay. But I'm not okay. Not financially, not emotionally. I live in a one-bedroom apartment in a part of town that's affordable only in the way that drowning in a pool is more survivable than drowning in the ocean. Rent eats half of my paycheck, and every year it creeps up while my salary barely budges. I work 2 jobs, full-time marketing coordinator during the week and freelance gig work on weekends. It's not glamorous. I'm constantly exhausted. I miss birthdays, dinners, lazy Sundays. But without both incomes, I'd be choosing between food and electricity. Every decision I make, every single one, is filtered through the lens of, can I afford this? And I'm not talking about vacations or designer clothes. I mean groceries, doctor appointments, haircuts. I stretch every dollar like it's elastic about to snap. I compare prices obsessively, down to the cents. Generic everything. No more fresh produce after the first week of the month because it goes bad too fast. I've become a master of calculated deprivation. It's not living, it's surviving. The hardest part? The mental toll. I live in a state of constant, low-grade anxiety. Some days it spikes, like when my car needs a repair or when my health insurance deductibles surprise me, but mostly, it's this background hum of fear. What if I get sick? What if I lose my job? What if I never get out of this? There's a sense of shame I carry around. Like I failed at adulthood. Like I must have done something wrong, because why else would I be working this hard and still feel like I'm sinking? I scroll through social media and see friends getting married, buying homes, traveling. And it's not envy, exactly. It's more like grief. Grieving the version of my life I thought I'd have by now. The one where I'd be saving for a house, not checking my bank account before every purchase. The one where I'd say yes to weekend trips instead of making excuses because I can't afford gas. I've had to put so many dreams on hold. I wanted to go to grad school, maybe start a nonprofit one day. I thought about moving to a different city, one that inspired me, maybe with a better job market. But dreams cost money, and I can't afford luxuries like hope right now. When people say, just follow your passion, I want to laugh. Or cry. Because my passion doesn't pay rent. My passion doesn't cancel student debt or fix my cracked molar that I've been ignoring for months because dental work isn't in the budget. Coping looks different these days. I journal a lot, pages filled with worry and guilt and sometimes little sparks of optimism. I take long walks, even when I'm tired, just to remind myself there's a world outside spreadsheets and stress. I've become incredibly close to a few friends who understand. We swap budgeting tips like recipes, send each other job postings, vent about the absurdity of the hustle. There's comfort in not feeling alone. And yet, even with all the pressure, there are moments, small ones, that keep me going. Like when I finally paid off one of my smaller loans. Or when I helped my younger sister fill out her FAFSA and she told me she was proud of me. Those moments are like tiny cracks in the wall around me, letting in just enough light to see a future I still want to believe in. I try to hold on to that. The belief that this is temporary. That I'll get to the other side of this. That I won't always have to ration shampoo or delay dental care or cry silently when I get another insufficient funds notice. I have to believe that something better is possible. Because if I let go of that, what's left? I don't want pity. I want a system that doesn't require me to break my body and spirit just to tread water. I want a world where people like me aren't punished for being born into a generation where everything costs more and means less. Where we can rest, dream, grow, not just hustle to survive. Until then, I keep going. I wake up, get dressed, and do the best I can with what I have. Some days, that's enough. Some days, it has to be. I wake up most mornings feeling like I didn't sleep. Not because I didn't close my eyes, because my mind never does. The first thing I think about when I open my eyes isn't coffee, or the weather, or even what I'm doing that day. It's money. More specifically, the absence of it. I'm 27, and it feels like I'm already behind on everything. Rent for my studio just went up again, $1 for 30 for a space that's barely big enough to stretch out in. When I got this place 2 years ago, it was $200. The landlord sent out an email with the subject line "adjustment in line with market trends." That phrase has lived rent-free in my head ever since, ironic, considering how nothing else in my life is rent-free. My job is at a small marketing firm. I'm a copywriter, which I once loved, because I've always been good with words. Now, I feel like I trade pieces of my creativity for not enough money and too much anxiety. I bring in about $300 a month after taxes. That should sound like enough. I used to think so too. But then there's the rent, the student loan payment, car insurance, utilities, my phone bill, groceries that seem to double in price every few months, and the occasional doctor visit I try not to think about. By the time the 15th rolls around, I'm juggling due dates and making judgment calls on what can wait. I've become an expert at putting off the electric bill for just the right number of days without getting shut off. It's like playing Jenga with my bank account. Every payment is a move that could bring the whole thing down. I've gotten good at saying no. No to dinners out with friends. No to dating, which has become a luxury I can't afford. What am I going to do? Ask someone to come over and watch me eat instant noodles under a flickering ceiling light. No to traveling, even though my cousin keeps begging me to visit her in Vancouver. I haven't left the state in 4 years. I miss the version of myself that used to get excited about planning trips. Now I look at plane tickets and just laugh. What hurts the most is how small my life feels now. I don't mean physically, although, again, this apartment is practically a closet, I mean emotionally. There used to be space in my mind for dreams. I wanted to write a novel. I wanted to go back to school for psychology. I wanted to buy my mom a house, something small and pretty with a porch swing. Now, it's all I can do to just stay afloat. Sometimes I feel ashamed even voicing this. Like, who am I to complain? I have a roof over my head, a job, my health, friends who care about me. But shame is tricky. It doesn't cancel out struggle, it just adds another layer to it. I carry it around like an extra coat I can't take off. Every time I scroll past someone posting about their new car or vacation or home, I try not to compare. I really do. But it's hard when your life feels like it's been stuck in the same place for years. The worst days are when unexpected expenses hit. Like the day my car needed new brakes. Or when my cat, Milo, swallowed a piece of string and had to be rushed to the vet. I cried in the parking lot afterward, not just because of the $780 bill, but because it felt like the universe keeps asking me to prove I can handle one more thing. Just one more. And then one more after that. My coping mechanisms aren't glamorous. I walk a lot. It's free. I listen to podcasts about people who turned their lives around, even though some part of me doubts I ever will. I budget obsessively, even if the math never quite adds up. And I write. Not for work, just for myself, when I can. Late at night, I'll open my laptop and let it all out, even if no one ever reads it. It's the only thing that still makes me feel like me. My mom says things will get better. You're doing everything right, she tells me. It's just a tough time. I want to believe her. I really do. But it's hard to keep faith when the goalposts keep moving, when every raise at work is immediately eaten up by rising costs. I used to think adulthood would feel like freedom. Now, it feels like I'm always on defense, dodging bills, trying to stay ahead of overdraft fees, checking my bank app before every transaction like I'm playing financial minesweeper. I think the most painful thing isn't the money itself, it's what money represents. Choices. Dignity. Hope. When you don't have enough, it starts to shrink your world, your sense of what's possible. I see it in little ways. Like how I second-guess buying a $3 coffee, because that's almost a gallon of gas. Or how I've stopped going to birthday parties because I can't afford a gift. Or how I once cried over having to throw out moldy groceries, not because I hate waste, but because I couldn't afford to replace them. People love to say, it gets better. And I want to believe them. I'm trying to hold on to that thread. Some days, I even imagine what it would feel like to not be afraid anymore. To have enough of a cushion that one bad week wouldn't destroy me. To look at my bank account and feel relief instead of dread. To say yes more often. Maybe someday I'll get there. Maybe I'll finally be able to save, to plan, to hope. Maybe I'll dust off those old dreams, the novel, the degree, the house for my mom, and chase them like I used to. But right now? Right now, I'm just trying to make it through the month. Again. I used to think hard work was enough. That if I got the right degree, kept my head down, and hustled, I'd be okay. I didn't expect riches, just stability, my own apartment, a car that starts in winter, maybe a little leftover each month to save. Now, at 28, I feel like I'm treading water in boots filled with cement. The more I swim, the deeper I sink. I graduated with a communications degree in 2019, full of optimism and a minor in creative writing. I landed a job at a mid-sized marketing firm a few months later. The pay wasn't great, but it was a start, $42,000 a year with health benefits and room to grow, they said. I was grateful. I moved into a small one-bedroom in a part of town where the bus still runs late and corner stores still accept change. Then COVID hit. Layoffs rolled in like thunder. My team was cut in half, and I was lucky, if that's the right word, to keep my job, even though it came with a 10% pay cut. For the next 2 years, raises were frozen due to economic uncertainty. Meanwhile, groceries crept up. Rent jumped. Utilities spiked. Every month felt tighter than the last. Now it's 2025, and I'm making $47,000, barely more than I started with, and far less once you adjust for inflation. Rent on my same little apartment is up 35% since I moved in. I've taken on 2 freelance clients, writing blog posts for $75 apiece just to keep pace. I grocery shop with a calculator. I skip dentist appointments and ignore weird sounds in my car. When I buy things, it's usually guilt-wrapped. Can I justify this? A haircut becomes a luxury. New shoes, a crisis. It's like playing a game where the rules keep changing, but you're penalized for not knowing them. Eggs went from $2 to $6 and back again, and I still can't afford either version without flinching. My phone battery dies at 20%, but a new one? That's $900 I don't have. My mom jokes that I live like a college student, but it's not funny, it's survival. I've stopped checking my student loan balance. It makes me nauseous. Even though the government's made some changes, my payments feel like a second rent. I pay the minimum and try not to think about how I'll still be chipping away at them into my 40s, maybe longer. I resent how normal this has become, how every conversation with friends eventually turns into a whispered confession about which bills we're delaying, what insurance we had to drop, which side hustles we're juggling. Emotionally, it wears on you in small, mean ways. You start to feel ashamed of wanting more. Like, who am I to dream of traveling, of owning a home, of having kids someday, when I can't even afford a weekend out without stressing over my bank balance? It messes with your sense of worth. I've had panic attacks at the grocery store, cried in my car after declining a birthday dinner invite I couldn't afford. I've lied and said I'm just tired when really, I'm exhausted from calculating every move. I try to cope the best I can. I've gotten good at cooking with whatever's cheap and on sale, pasta, beans, eggs when they're not outrageous. I go on long walks instead of paying for therapy. I journal. I read library books and pretend I don't miss streaming shows everyone's talking about. Sometimes I write poetry, mostly late at night when the silence feels like judgment. Writing helps me feel like I still have some control, like I still have something to say that isn't just a receipt or a balance due. My dreams have changed. When I was younger, I wanted to write novels, travel to Japan, own a little cottage with ivy around the door. Now I dream of a steady job that pays $60K, a car that doesn't break down, and a savings account that has more than $400 in it. I still think about writing books, but I also think about what I'd have to give up to make time for that. Sleep? Freelance income? Health? Sometimes I catch myself saying, once things settle down, like it's a temporary phase. But what if this is just life now? A constant tightrope walk between needs and expenses, between dreams and survival. I worry that I'll wake up at 40 and realize I've spent the best years of my life in economic limbo, waiting for permission to breathe. But still, there's a sliver of something in me that refuses to quit. Maybe it's stubbornness. Maybe it's hope. I keep showing up. I keep writing, even if no one reads it. I keep saying yes to possibilities, even if I don't know how I'll pay for them yet. I try to celebrate small wins, an unexpected tax refund, a good review from a freelance client, a week without overdrafting. I know I'm not alone. That's both comforting and devastating. So many of us are stuck in this system that demands more than it gives, where hard work doesn't guarantee security, and dreaming feels like a risk. But I still believe, or maybe just need to believe, that something better is possible. That we're not broken, just broke. That one day, we'll catch up. That surviving this will mean something. Until then, I keep going. One paycheck at a time. One story at a time. One quiet hope at a time. I used to think adulthood would feel more stable than this. Not easy, of course, but stable, like something solid I could lean on when things got rough. Instead, it feels like trying to build a house on wet sand. No matter how hard I work, no matter how carefully I plan, something always shifts underneath me. I'm 27, work full-time as a customer support agent for a software company, and live in a one-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city that keeps pretending it's New York when it comes to rent. I make just over $43,000 a year before taxes. After rent, bills, groceries, student loans, and the never-ending stream of unexpected expenses, like my car breaking down last month or my landlord deciding to raise the rent again, I'm lucky if I have $150 left in my account by the end of the month. Savings are a joke. So is the idea of owning a home, or even taking a vacation. People around me like to talk about the American dream like it's still real, like you just have to hustle harder, keep your head down, and good things will come. But it doesn't feel that way. It feels like I'm sprinting on a treadmill set too fast, and I can't get off because everything depends on me staying on it: my housing, my credit score, my ability to afford basic healthcare. The economic environment isn't just numbers on a screen to me. It's standing in the grocery aisle comparing prices on cereal and knowing I have to choose the store brand with less protein because it's 40 cents cheaper. It's skipping out on going to the dentist for the third year in a row because even with insurance, the copay and cleanings are more than I can afford. It's turning down friends when they invite me out, not because I don't want to see them, but because I've already hit my budget for eating out, $60 a month, and that includes coffee. I think about money every day. Not in the way rich people do, like how to invest or grow it. I think about it the way someone might think about air if they had to buy it to breathe. It's a constant, low-grade panic. Even when I'm not actively budgeting or paying bills, it sits there in the back of my mind. A hum I can't turn off. I remember when I used to dream bigger. I wanted to go back to school for psychology. I thought maybe I'd become a therapist. Help people. But that dream got shelved after I realized I'd never be able to afford graduate school without taking on another mountain of debt. I used to draw, too, had a little art account on Instagram where I posted every week. But now, by the time I get home from work, cook something cheap and semi-nutritious, and try to get 6 hours of sleep, the last thing I have is creative energy. Some days, I let myself imagine what it would feel like not to be constantly on edge. To take a walk without worrying about gas prices. To see something nice in a store and just buy it. To say yes when my best friend invites me to her bachelorette weekend in Miami instead of lying about why I can't go. I imagine a life where I could start a savings account and not immediately empty it the next time I need to fix a tire or buy new work shoes. And then I pull myself back. Because hope like that starts to feel dangerous. I cope by keeping things small. I budget obsessively. I meal prep on Sundays with whatever's on sale. I track every dollar in an app one hate but need. I listen to financial advice podcasts that make me feel like maybe, someday, I'll escape this cycle. I read library books and remind myself that joy can still exist outside of spending. I keep a list of free events in the city and try to show up for at least one a month so I don't drown in loneliness. I'm also in therapy, thanks to a sliding scale clinic that charges me $20 a session. It's one of the few things that feels like an investment in a future I'm still trying to believe in. We talk a lot about shame. How society teaches us that struggling financially is a personal failure instead of a systemic issue. I'm learning, slowly, to untangle my worth from my bank balance. But it's hard. It's really hard. I look at my parents and wonder how they did it. Bought a house at 30. Raised 2 kids on one income. Took vacations. Retired early. My mom jokes that they got lucky. Different time, she says. And I guess it was. Back then, rent didn't eat up half your paycheck. Back then, college wasn't priced like a luxury car. Back then, you could work a single job and actually survive. I want to believe that things will change. That the rising cost of living won't always outpace our wages. That someday the burden will ease a little. But I also know people have been saying that for years, and I'm still here, standing in the checkout line, wondering if I have enough in my account to cover everything in my basket. So I keep going. One day at a time. I show up to work. I send out applications for jobs that pay a little better, even if it feels like shouting into a void. I try to laugh when I can. I celebrate small wins, a week with no overdrafts, a friend who brings over dinner, a rare overtime shift. I hold space for the version of me that still dreams, even if it's just a quiet whisper in the background. Because even when everything feels rigged, even when the system seems designed to keep us treading water, I still want to believe there's something on the other side of this. That maybe, just maybe, we're not as stuck as we feel. I remember the first time I felt ashamed of my bank account. It wasn't even empty, not technically. There were $18.74 in there. But it felt like a punch to the chest when I stood in line at the grocery store, silently calculating if I could afford both toothpaste and tampons. I was 25, working 2 part-time jobs, and I still had to put back the yogurt. The cashier gave me that soft, sympathetic look, the kind that feels worse than judgment. Like I was a stray dog someone wanted to pet but couldn't take home. This has been my reality for the last few years. I didn't think I'd end up here. I was the first in my family to go to college. I worked hard, made honor roll, picked a practical major, communications, because it was broad, employable, and I liked writing. I had dreams of working in media, maybe telling stories that mattered. But what they don't tell you is that entry-level jobs now require 3 years of experience and pay barely enough to afford rent, let alone student loans or savings. The apartment I share with 2 other people has black mold in the bathroom. We joke about it sometimes, like, hope the spores don't kill me before Sally Mae does. But the truth is it scares me. I haven't told my landlord because I can't afford to piss him off. Rent's already gone up $150 in the past year, and this is still the cheapest place I could find within commuting distance of both my jobs. One is at a local coffee shop, minimum wage plus tips, which varies wildly. The other is a remote freelance gig writing blog content for small businesses. It's inconsistent work and pays by the word, so I have to churn out thousands of words weekly just to scrape by. Sometimes I stare at the screen and feel completely hollow, like I'm pouring myself into something that gives nothing back. Every month feels like a game of financial Tetris. Do I pay for the dentist appointment I've been postponing for 6 months, or do I keep my internet connected so I can work? Do I eat eggs and toast for another week, or do I splurge on real vegetables? I've learned to stretch a rotisserie chicken across 4 days and make $10 of gas last until payday. I clip digital coupons like my mom used to with scissors. But the thing they don't prepare you for is the mental toll, the way scarcity worms its way into your brain. I feel it when I avoid social gatherings because I can't afford to split a dinner bill. I feel it when I hesitate before turning on the heat in winter, even though I can see my breath indoors. And I feel it every time I see former classmates on Instagram vacationing in places I'll probably never see with jobs I once thought I'd have. I don't hate them. I don't even think they're lucky, necessarily. Some of them had help, parents who could float them rent while they interned for free or paid off their loans so they could build savings. That's not bitterness talking. It's just the truth. My parents love me, but they're working-class immigrants who still live paycheck to paycheck themselves. I send them $100 every month when I can, even if it means I skip lunch some days. Because that's what you do when you're the one who made it, even if you didn't really make it anywhere at all. Some nights, lying in bed, I think about how I used to imagine my 20s would feel. I thought it would be full of color and movement, road trips, late-night writing sessions, new cities, creativity blooming. But it's mostly grayscale now. The kind of gray that comes from fluorescent lights and concrete bus stops and hours logged into budgeting apps. It's not that I don't still dream. I do. I dream about having my own place, somewhere clean and quiet where I can light candles without worrying they'll mask the smell of mildew. I dream about going back to school for something I actually love, like sociology or art history. I dream about falling in love and not worrying about whether we can afford rent on 2 incomes. But all those dreams feel like postcards from another life, lovely to look at, impossible to touch. I cope in little ways. I write in a journal, even if it's mostly grocery lists and quiet prayers. I let myself cry in the shower when things feel too heavy. I keep a list of small joys, a good hair day, a funny text from my sister, the bus arriving on time. I've learned that if I can find 3 good things in a day, I can usually keep going. But there's a fatigue that doesn't go away. A kind of emotional erosion that happens when you're constantly choosing between survival and self-respect. When you have to act cheerful at work even though your checking account just dipped below zero. When you start to believe maybe you're the problem, even though every article says wages haven't kept up with inflation in decades. It's hard not to internalize it. To wonder if you took a wrong turn somewhere, or if you're just not trying hard enough, even though you're exhausted all the time. People say things like, "It gets better." I want to believe that. I want to believe that if I just keep pushing, keep budgeting, keep hustling, there'll be a break. But I also know that hope starts to feel dangerous when it keeps getting postponed. It becomes another bill you're not sure you can afford. Still, I hold on to it. Not because I'm naive, but because I have to. Because even if the system is broken, and even if I feel trapped in it most days, I refuse to let it take everything from me. I'm still here. Still writing. Still trying. That has to count for something. So yeah, right now, I can't afford vacations or savings or a dentist. But I can afford to hope that one day I will. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough to get me through this chapter. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. Sometimes, I wonder if I missed a crucial memo, like some hidden lesson in adulthood that explains how everyone else is making it work while I'm barely holding it together. I'm 27. I rent a studio apartment in a neighborhood that's rapidly gentrifying, which is just code for rent going up while nothing else around me improves. I work 2 jobs, part-time at a coffee shop and evenings doing remote freelance copywriting gigs. Between the two, I pull in maybe $800 a month on a good month. Rent is $350. That's almost half my income just to exist somewhere. Add utilities, groceries, transportation, my student loan payment, and it's a miracle if I can afford a drink with a friend once a month without guilt chasing me home. I used to dream bigger. I went to school for journalism, thinking I'd travel, tell stories that matter, write pieces that make people feel something. Now I write SEO articles about toothpaste ingredients or 500-word blurbs convincing people to buy leggings. It pays just enough to keep my electricity on. Every day is a balancing act. Not just with money, but with my own mind. I'll spend 20 minutes standing in front of the eggs at the grocery store doing mental math. If I buy the 18-pack for $6.59, I can skip yogurt this week. But if I skip yogurt, will I be too hungry at work and end up spending $4 on a muffin I didn't budget for? My life is a string of these mini moral and financial negotiations. Should I walk 35 minutes home instead of taking the bus to save $2.75? Should I skip the medication I was prescribed for my anxiety because the insurance I can barely afford doesn't cover it? I carry these thoughts like weights in my pocket. Every time I pull one out, there's another waiting. It's exhausting. And it's lonely. Most of my friends are in the same boat, but we don't talk about it directly. We joke about being broke over texts, share memes about depression and capitalism, but the real conversations stay buried. Nobody wants to admit how close we are to breaking. Some nights, when I can't sleep, I open Zillow or look at job listings I'm not qualified for just to pretend I could start over. I fantasize about stability, not wealth, not luxury, just a life where I'm not constantly scared. I want a car that doesn't threaten to fall apart. I want to go to the dentist without checking my bank balance first. I want to be able to say yes to dinner plans without checking if it's payday week. There's a kind of shame that comes with being poor in a society that teaches you every failure is personal. I internalize it even when I know better. I feel like I've done something wrong. I have a degree. I've worked since I was 16. I budget. I hustle. But still, I'm drowning in bills while being told the economy is recovering. My parents try to be supportive, but they don't really get it. They think I'm too picky or not working hard enough. You just need to stick with a job and move up, they say, as if loyalty still guarantees raises or security in today's market. They paid off their house when they were in their 30s. I can't even imagine owning property. I can't imagine a vacation longer than a weekend, unless it's to visit family, which isn't rest. Dating is complicated, too. I worry I'm a burden. I've gone on dates where I pretended I wasn't hungry so I could just order a side and still tip fairly. I've cancelled on people because I didn't have subway fare. There's this underlying fear that I'm not ready for love because I'm not stable enough. Like I have to fix my finances before I'm allowed to be fully human. Coping? I guess I have ways. I write in my journal when I can. I go on long walks, mostly because they're free. I listen to music that reminds me I'm not alone, that someone out there felt this way and lived to tell the story. Sometimes I volunteer at the library's community events. Helping others gives me a strange comfort, like maybe I'm still useful even when I feel broken. I've had to put dreams on pause. Travel is one. Grad school, maybe. I wanted to publish a book by 30, laughable now. Most days I'm just trying to make it to the next paycheck without something falling apart. That's what adulthood feels like now. Survival, not growth. Still, somewhere inside me, hope flickers. Not the naive kind I had at 22. But something quieter. More like endurance. I think of the people who came before me, my grandmother working 3 jobs, my mother raising kids on her own. They didn't give up. And I guess that's what I hold on to. Not some grand idea that everything will magically get better, but the belief that I can keep going, that I have to. Because if I stop dreaming entirely, then what's left? I remember when I first started working full-time, I thought I had it all figured out. I was fresh out of college, hopeful, determined. The kind of hope that makes you believe that with hard work, you can build a life, maybe a modest apartment, a reliable car, a few weekend getaways, and someday, even a house of your own. But somewhere along the way, that hope got tangled up in bills, rent hikes, and the creeping weight of expenses I never expected to manage. Every morning, I wake up with this dull ache in my chest, not quite panic, but close. It's that constant worry about money that's become my baseline. I make a decent enough salary on paper, but the truth is, my paycheck barely stretches to cover the essentials. Rent has gone up twice since I moved into my small, cramped apartment. Utilities, groceries, transportation, they all keep inching upward like this slow-moving storm that I can't escape. And then there are the surprises, a car repair, a medical bill, an unexpected subscription charge. Each one feels like a weight thrown on my back, pushing me closer to breaking. I spend more time crunching numbers than enjoying life. Every purchase is a negotiation in my head. Should I buy groceries this week or pay off that credit card bill a little more? Can I afford to go out with friends, or should I stay home and cook something cheap? Sometimes I skip meals or cut corners on essentials just to save a few dollars. It's embarrassing and frustrating, but it feels like the only way to stay afloat. I've started carrying cash instead of cards, because swiping a card feels too easy, too tempting. When it's cash, I can see the money leaving my hands, and I can stop when it's gone. The strangest thing is how isolating it all feels. People around me talk about vacations, new gadgets, eating out, and I nod along, but inside, I'm shrinking. I'm quietly ashamed because I know I'm supposed to be doing better by now. I'm supposed to be building credit, saving, investing. But instead, I'm stuck in this cycle where every month is a scramble, every decision weighed down by what I can't do rather than what I want. I'm trapped in a system that's designed to keep me chasing a moving target. The cost of living goes up, but my income stays almost the same. I'm always one step behind. Some days, the pressure crushes me. I lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'll ever get ahead. Will I ever have a cushion, a safety net? Will I be able to save for a real emergency, let alone a down payment on a home or even a vacation? It feels like I'm running on a treadmill that speeds up every month, and no matter how fast I run, I can't catch up. I cope in little ways. Sometimes I journal, writing down my frustrations helps me breathe. Other times, I binge-watch old TV shows or listen to music to escape the noise in my head. I talk to close friends when I can, though I don't always share the full picture. Vulnerability is a risk when you feel like you're the only one struggling while everyone else seems to be moving forward. I've had to put dreams on hold, dreams I thought were guaranteed by now. I wanted to travel, to explore new places and cultures. I wanted to go back to school, maybe for a master's degree, but the thought of piling on more debt terrifies me. I dreamed of adopting a dog someday, but the costs, food, vet visits, emergencies, seem impossible to justify right now. Even dating feels complicated. How do you share your life openly when you're ashamed of your financial reality? Sometimes I think about the future and try to imagine what it might hold. I hold on to hope that things will change, maybe a raise, a new opportunity, a break in the market. But hope is fragile. It's a quiet, flickering thing that I have to nurture carefully so it doesn't go out. Because if hope dies, so does the energy to keep going. Still, despite the weight and the exhaustion, I try to remind myself that I'm not alone. There are millions of people like me, caught in the same struggle, trying to make it work in a world where the rules seem rigged against us. And maybe that shared experience is a small comfort. Maybe it's a call to be kinder to myself, to forgive the times I fall short or make mistakes. I don't know how this story will end, or if the pressure will ever fully lift. But I do know one thing, I'm still here, still trying. And maybe that's enough for now. The financial stress is more than numbers, it's the way it shapes my days, my choices, my dreams. But it doesn't define my worth. I'm more than my paycheck, more than my debts, more than the trap I find myself in. And someday, I hope to tell a different story, one where the pressure eases, and the future feels bright again. I never thought money would feel like this, like a constant weight pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. Growing up, I heard adults talk about bills and budgets, but it all seemed distant, like an adult problem I'd figure out someday. Now that I'm living it, I realize how brutal and relentless it really is. Every day is a balancing act, juggling expenses that keep creeping higher and higher while my income barely budges. It's exhausting, demoralizing, and honestly, sometimes I don't know how I'm still standing. I'm 27, working a decent job, not glamorous or high-paying, but stable enough that I thought I'd be able to manage. At least, that's what I hoped when I took this job 3 years ago. I imagined paying rent, buying groceries without counting every penny, maybe even saving up for something bigger, a trip, a new laptop, or just a little cushion for emergencies. But the reality is way harsher. Rent has shot up in my city by more than 10% since I moved in, groceries feel like they cost twice as much as last year, and utilities spike unpredictably with every season. Meanwhile, my salary has stayed almost exactly the same, thanks to company freezes and inflation adjustments that barely keep up with real prices. What really stings is how I've had to cut out the little things that used to make life bearable. I used to go out with friends, even if just for a coffee or a cheap meal, to feel connected and unwind. Now, I rarely say yes to invitations because I know that money spent on a night out means less money for rent or groceries. I've stopped buying books, stopped getting my hair done professionally, stopped treating myself in any way. It feels like I'm shrinking my life, trimming the edges until there's nothing left but survival. The daily grind of financial pressure has seeped into every decision I make, and it's exhausting to carry that constant anxiety. When I wake up, I immediately start thinking about the bills that are due, the bank balance, and what I can realistically afford today. Even small purchases turn into negotiations in my head. Should I buy the more expensive but healthier option at the grocery store? Should I get the generic brand and hope it doesn't make me sick? What if I skip buying something now and end up needing it later? The fear of making the wrong choice paralyzes me sometimes. Even work feels different under this pressure. I find myself distracted, worried about my paycheck stretching to cover rent and essentials. I'm scared to ask for a raise because the company's been clear about tight budgets. I've thought about looking for a better paying job, but the thought of starting over somewhere new, with no guarantees, terrifies me too. It's like being stuck in quicksand, the harder I try to get out, the deeper I sink. Emotionally, the toll is heavy. I feel ashamed to admit how often I lie awake at night thinking about money. I try to hide it from friends and family because I don't want to seem weak or irresponsible. But the truth is, the pressure makes me feel small and invisible, like I'm trapped in a system designed to keep people like me barely afloat. I see people around me buying houses, traveling, or saving for their futures, and it feels like I'm stuck on the sidelines, watching life pass by while I scramble to pay the bills. There are moments when the weight gets so overwhelming I just want to give up on dreams, on plans, on hope. But then I remind myself why I keep going. I want a future where I'm not scared of my bank account. I want to be able to live with dignity, to have the freedom to make choices that don't always revolve around money. I dream of traveling, of going back to school, of maybe even owning a small place where I don't have to worry about rent hikes every year. Those dreams feel distant and fragile, but they're still alive. To cope, I've had to learn some hard lessons. I keep detailed budgets now, something I never thought I'd do, and I track every expense. I've become an expert at finding discounts, using coupons, and choosing free or low-cost entertainment options. I also try to talk about my struggles with close friends, even though it's hard. Just knowing I'm not alone helps sometimes. And when it all feels too much, I remind myself to breathe, to take it one day at a time, even if that feels like an impossible mantra. I don't know when or how things will change. Maybe I'll get a raise or find a better job. Maybe inflation will slow down, or rent will stabilize. But right now, this is my reality, a life where expenses rise faster than income, where every decision feels like a compromise, and where hope is something I guard carefully, like a fragile flame in the dark. If you're feeling this too, like you're trapped in the same cycle, I want you to know you're not alone. It's okay to feel overwhelmed and scared. It's okay to talk about it. We're more than the numbers in our bank accounts, even when the world seems determined to make us feel otherwise. And maybe, just maybe, if we hold on and keep fighting, those postponed dreams will one day become the life we live. I never thought I'd be writing about money like this, like it's this shadow I'm always running from but can never quite outrun. But here I am, sitting in my tiny apartment with bills spread out in front of me, trying to make sense of the numbers that never add up, trying to figure out how I'm supposed to keep going when everything just keeps getting harder. I'm 27, working full-time at a job that pays the rent and the utilities but leaves me barely enough left for food and the smallest comforts. Every month, I promise myself I'll save a little, put something away for emergencies or maybe for a trip or a course to help me get ahead, but it never happens. Because just when I think I'm catching up, something new pops up, an unexpected car repair, the rent increase I knew was coming but hoped wouldn't be so steep, or groceries that cost more than last week. The prices climb like this invisible wall rising between me and any kind of stability. I feel like I'm stuck in a loop where the system itself is designed so that no matter how hard I try, I'm not allowed to get ahead. It's this constant push and pull that wears on you, and the worst part is that it feels completely invisible to everyone else. People tell me, just budget better, or maybe try living more frugally. But I'm already scrimping and sacrificing in ways they don't see. Skipping meals so I can pay a bill. Passing up social invitations because there's no extra money for anything that isn't essential. I'm stretched thin, and the weight of it is exhausting. Every decision feels like a math problem with no good answers. Do I pay for the doctor's visit or buy groceries? Should I refill my prescription now or wait and hope my symptoms don't get worse? Should I take the bus or try to save the fare and walk, knowing I'll be tired all day? These aren't just choices, they're little battles against an unyielding tide. The emotional toll is something else entirely. There's this low hum of anxiety that's always there, in the back of my mind. I lie awake at night, heart racing, thinking about how next month might be even worse. Sometimes, I feel ashamed that I can't make it work, that I'm not more resilient. But then I remind myself it's not about weakness. It's about being caught in a system that's broken. I used to dream differently. When I was younger, I imagined traveling the world, going back to school for something I loved, maybe starting a small business or creating art full-time. But those dreams feel like luxury now, distant and unreachable. They have to be postponed, indefinitely. I tell myself I'm just being realistic, but inside, there's this ache, like a quiet mourning for the future I was supposed to have. Sometimes I wonder if anyone else feels like this, really understands what it's like to be drowning in financial stress that isn't just a phase but a chronic reality. I think about my friends who seem to have it all figured out, who can afford weekends away or dinners out without blinking. It's hard not to feel left behind, not to feel like I'm less because I don't have that freedom. But even in the hard days, I find small ways to cope. I read books from the library instead of buying them. I go for long walks, even if it means leaving my phone at home so I'm not tempted to spend money on apps or games. I keep a journal where I pour out all the fears and frustrations, trying to make sense of it all. And I try to hold on to hope, even if it feels fragile, hope that maybe one day, the walls won't be so high, and the path will open up a little wider. I don't want pity. I just want the world to know this isn't about laziness or bad choices. It's about a system where the cost of living rises relentlessly, wages stagnate, and people like me get squeezed tighter and tighter until we feel like we might snap. I want to be seen for who I am beyond the paycheck I bring home, beyond the bills I struggle to pay. And most of all, I want to believe that someday, the dreams I've put on hold won't have to wait anymore. That maybe there's a future where I'm not just surviving, but living. Where the weight of money isn't a constant battle, but just one small part of a much bigger, brighter story. For now, I take it one day at a time, holding on to that hope, even when the numbers don't add up. Because hope is all I really have left. It's hard to pinpoint the exact moment when the weight of money shifted from something manageable to this constant, gnawing pressure in my chest. I remember when I first moved out on my own, fresh out of college, full of hope and energy. The world felt like a place with possibilities. If you worked hard, you'd get ahead, right? But now, years later, the math just doesn't add up. No matter how tightly I budget, no matter how many hours I work, the bills always pile up faster than I can pay them. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up just as you start to find your pace. Every day, I wake up thinking about money. Not in a casual way, more like a constant background noise that I can't turn off. It's the first thing I check: how much is left in my bank account after rent, groceries, utilities, and the ever-increasing price of gas and public transit. Sometimes, I catch myself calculating in my head how many days I can stretch this or that expense before it turns into a crisis. It's exhausting. The rising costs are relentless. Rent went up again this year, not a tiny increase, but enough that I had to make tough decisions about what to cut. That meant giving up my gym membership, skipping the occasional night out with friends, and eating a lot less fresh produce. I remind myself that it's temporary, but it's hard not to feel like I'm shrinking my life just to pay for a roof over my head. What stings the most is how my income barely moves. I work full-time in a decent job, but the pay raises never keep pace with inflation. Sometimes I wonder if I'm stuck in this loop because of the system itself, a system that seems designed to keep people like me just above the edge of financial disaster but never truly secure. I'm not alone in this, of course. Most of my friends are in the same boat, juggling side gigs, sharing apartments, or delaying big life milestones like buying a car or starting a family. And then there's the emotional toll. Money stress doesn't just live in my bank statements, it leaks into everything else. It's in the anxiety that wakes me up at night, the tightness in my chest when I open an unexpected bill, the guilt I feel when I say no to invitations because I can't afford it. I'm constantly worried about the future. Will I ever be able to save enough to move somewhere better? To travel? To feel stable? I used to dream big. I wanted to travel the world, to buy a home, maybe start a family someday. Those dreams feel farther away now, hazier, like distant stars that I can see but not reach. I've had to postpone plans I once thought were certain. That solo trip to Europe I saved for? Shelved indefinitely. The idea of buying my own place? A pipe dream in this housing market. Even thinking about retirement feels premature. How can I save for that when I'm just scraping by today? But I try not to lose hope entirely. I find small ways to cope, little pockets of joy that remind me life isn't all about money. I've started cooking more at home, turning it into a creative outlet instead of a chore. I lean on friends for emotional support, and we find free or low-cost ways to connect, movie nights at home, long walks in the park. Sometimes, I journal about my frustrations and fears, trying to untangle the knot of stress inside my mind. I'm also learning to be kinder to myself. It's easy to feel like I'm failing because I can't keep up with this relentless economic tide, but I'm doing what I can. Every small paycheck, every carefully planned grocery trip, every skipped coffee is an act of survival. I remind myself that resilience doesn't mean thriving in perfect conditions. Sometimes it just means hanging on through the storm. Still, the system that traps so many of us in this cycle weighs heavily on me. I see the headlines about inflation, housing crises, stagnant wages, and wonder when or if it will ever change. I'm angry at a world where working full-time doesn't guarantee a stable life. It's hard not to feel powerless in the face of such a massive, impersonal force. Yet, despite everything, I keep going. Because I have to. Because giving up isn't an option. And maybe one day, those postponed dreams will come back into focus. For now, I'm navigating this complicated, stressful, and often heartbreaking reality the best I can, with honesty, vulnerability, and a stubborn thread of hope that things will get better. I never imagined that by the time I was 26, I'd be living with this constant, gnawing pressure, like some invisible weight pressing down on every breath I take. It's not just the money itself, though that's bad enough. It's the way it shapes every choice, every hope, every tiny plan I try to make, only to watch it crumble before it even starts. I grew up believing that if I worked hard, stayed responsible, and made smart decisions, I'd be okay. My parents always drilled into me the idea of financial independence, budgeting, saving. So, I got a degree, landed a steady job, and thought I was on the right track. But somewhere along the way, the math stopped adding up. Rent alone is a nightmare. It's insane how much it's gone up in just a few years. I live in a small, cramped apartment in a neighborhood that's just on the edge of affordable. Every month, I scramble to cover rent, utilities, and groceries, and sometimes I don't even manage it without dipping into what little I have saved. And then there's the creeping costs, car repairs, insurance, medical bills. They pile up like snow on a roof until I'm sure the whole thing is going to cave in. I feel trapped. Like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up faster than I can keep pace. My paycheck stays the same or barely edges up, but expenses keep climbing, sometimes faster than I can even track. The inflation numbers I read about in the news aren't just numbers, they're real life, and they're crushing me. I catch myself counting coins in the couch cushions, or debating over whether to skip a meal or turn the heater down just a little more. It's humiliating to admit, but I've even pawned some things I never thought I would. Not because I'm reckless, quite the opposite. I'm careful to the point of obsession. But careful isn't enough anymore. The emotional toll is harder to explain. There's this constant background noise of anxiety, like a storm that never quite breaks but threatens at every moment. I find myself waking up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, thinking about bills, about the future, about what happens if I get sick or lose my job. And then there's the shame, the embarrassment. I feel like I'm failing myself and everyone who's ever believed in me. Social life? That's another casualty. I can't afford to go out with friends, not really. Even a simple coffee or dinner feels like a luxury. So, I decline invitations or make excuses. Over time, I feel more and more isolated. People don't understand why I'm always busy or tired, but the truth is, I'm just drained, not just physically but emotionally. Financial pressure is exhausting in a way that no one talks about. I cope the best I can. I try to find small moments of joy, walking in the park, cooking at home, binge-watching shows on free streaming sites. I remind myself that this isn't forever, even if it feels that way. Sometimes, I write down my feelings in a notebook, just to get them out of my head. It helps, in a way, to acknowledge the struggle instead of pretending everything is fine. But dreams, they keep slipping away. I had plans to travel, to maybe start my own business someday, to save enough to buy a home. All those big hopes feel like they belong to someone else now. I've had to put them on hold indefinitely, folding them away like old letters I don't have the heart to throw out but can't bring myself to read either. I'm scared. Scared that I'll stay stuck in this loop. That no matter how hard I try, the system is stacked against me, against people like me, where wages barely budge, but prices keep soaring. I'm angry, too, at a world that values profit over people, that makes survival feel like a battle instead of a right. And yet, somewhere deep down, I still hold on. To hope, to the belief that things can change. Maybe not tomorrow or next year, but someday. I want to believe that this pressure, this weight, will lift. That I'll breathe freely again. That I can reclaim the parts of myself I've had to sacrifice. For now, I take it day by day. I remind myself that even in this struggle, I'm not alone. There are others feeling the same squeeze, wrestling with the same invisible burden. And maybe, if we speak honestly about it, if we don't hide the truth, things can start to shift. Because living like this, trapped, exhausted, barely scraping by, it's not just a personal problem. It's a symptom of a broken system. And it's time someone talked about it out loud. I never thought I'd feel this way, stuck, suffocating, like I'm drowning in a tide that keeps rising no matter how hard I swim. When I was a kid, I imagined growing up would mean freedom, choice, maybe even a little ease. Instead, it's been one long balancing act, trying to keep my head above the financial water, day after day. It's hard to describe exactly how it feels when your expenses grow faster than your income, but maybe the best way is this: it's like running on a treadmill that's speeding up while you're getting more and more tired. Every month, I think I've got a handle on my money, and then, bam, the rent goes up, or the price of groceries spikes, or the car needs some expensive fix. Suddenly, the handle slips out of my fingers, and I'm scrambling to catch it again, only to lose grip all over. The stress is constant, low-level but never-ending. It wears on you in a way that's hard to explain unless you've lived it. I work a full-time job, one that pays just enough to cover rent, utilities, phone, and the bare minimum of groceries. The rest of the extras, dining out, a night with friends, new clothes, or even a bus ticket for something fun, have slowly vanished from my life. I try to be smart, clipping coupons, hunting for sales, cutting corners wherever I can. But it feels like the whole economic system is stacked against me. Every time I try to save, prices jump. Every time I make a small step forward, I get pushed 2 steps back. There's a crushing weight to that. Sometimes, I lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what I've had to give up. Like the dream of moving out of this cramped apartment into a place with sunlight and some space to breathe. Or traveling somewhere new, even just a weekend trip feels like a luxury now. I used to think those things were just a few years away. But now? They seem like distant stars, beautiful but untouchable. The hardest part is how invisible it all feels. No one sees the constant calculations running in my head every time I think about buying something. No one knows how many times I debate whether to text my friends to hang out because I'm afraid of the cost. Sometimes I say yes just to feel normal, but then I have to skip meals later in the week to make up for it. It's a quiet kind of suffering, one that doesn't show in bruises or broken bones but in the slow erosion of hope. I also feel trapped. Like I'm caught in a system where the rules aren't designed for people like me, people working hard but never getting ahead. The news talks about inflation and economic recovery, but I don't see it. I see people raising prices, companies increasing fees, and wages that barely budge. I see job postings for entry-level positions that want 5 years of experience. It's like the ladder I'm trying to climb is missing several rungs. To cope, I try to find small pockets of peace. Sometimes, it's just sitting outside with a cheap cup of coffee, watching the world go by. Other times, I pour everything into my art, sketching, writing, anything that lets me escape for a moment. Those moments are brief, but they remind me that I'm more than my bank balance. I remind myself that this pressure doesn't define my worth. Still, the emotional toll is there. Anxiety, sometimes creeping depression, frustration that bubbles up and spills over in moments I don't expect. I've learned to hide it well, but inside, it's a storm. The fear of what happens if something bigger breaks, like a medical bill or my car dying completely, hangs over me. I don't have a safety net. I don't have family I can turn to. I'm alone in this. I wish I could tell my younger self that it's okay to feel scared, to feel tired, to not have everything figured out. I wish I could promise that someday, somehow, the tide will turn. But right now, I just try to keep moving, one day at a time. I hold on to the hope that the system can change, that wages will catch up, that there will be a way to break free. For now, I dream quietly, in the spaces between work shifts and sleepless nights. I dream of a future where I don't have to choose between eating well and paying rent. I dream of stability, of peace, of a little more breathing room. Maybe it's naive, maybe it's foolish, but it's what keeps me going. Because without hope, what else is there? So here I am, speaking honestly about what it's like to live with ongoing financial pressure, a constant, unseen battle. It's hard, it's lonely, and it's exhausting. But I'm still here. Still fighting. Still hoping. I wake up every morning to the same dull ache in my chest, not a physical pain, but the weight of knowing I'm walking a tightrope stretched thinner with each passing day. My name is Alex, I'm 27, and for as long as I can remember, money has felt like this invisible, tightening noose around my neck. It's not just the bills or the rent or the grocery prices that keep climbing, it's this relentless, grinding pressure that never really lets up, like the system was built to keep people like me just barely afloat, always struggling to breathe, always just one emergency away from disaster. I grew up hearing the usual stories: work hard, get a good job, save, invest, buy a home. Simple, right? But the reality I live now looks nothing like those stories. Every paycheck feels like it's already been claimed by something else before it even hits my bank account. Rent takes the biggest slice. I live in a small, cramped apartment on the outskirts of the city, a place where the walls are thin and the heater barely works, but it's all I can afford. Utilities, phone bills, transport, groceries, they all pile up, and the numbers keep climbing faster than my paycheck ever could. I've held a few jobs since graduating college. None of them have paid enough to cover all the costs, but quitting wasn't an option. I work overtime when I can, sometimes late into the night, just to patch the holes in my budget. The anxiety that comes with waiting for that next paycheck is crushing. I constantly check my balance, calculate how long this money will last, and mentally prepare myself for what I'll have to cut next. I don't have a safety net. No family support, no rich uncle, no trust fund waiting somewhere. Just me, trying to make it stretch. There's this overwhelming sense of being trapped in a system that's not designed for people like me to thrive. The rent goes up every year, groceries seem to cost more every week, and yet my income barely nudges up. It's like a slow-motion squeeze that tightens and tightens until it's hard to even breathe. It's not just about the numbers, though. It's about what this pressure does to me mentally and emotionally. I feel exhausted all the time, not just physically but emotionally. I lie awake some nights, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the things I wanted to do but had to put on hold. I wanted to travel, see new places, meet new people. I wanted to move into a nicer apartment, start saving for a car, maybe even think about buying a home someday. But those dreams feel like they're slipping further and further away. I've had to postpone medical appointments, skip social events, and say no to invitations from friends because I just couldn't afford it. Sometimes I feel like I'm living in survival mode, just trying to get through each day without breaking. It's lonely, too. I don't talk about money struggles much because I don't want to burden anyone, but it's isolating to feel like you're constantly behind while everyone else seems to be moving forward. Coping with all this isn't easy. Some days, I try to distract myself, binge watch shows, go for a run, or lose myself in music. Other days, the stress weighs so heavily I just want to curl up and disappear. I try to remind myself that this isn't forever, but it's hard to hold on to hope when the horizon never seems to get any clearer. I've started budgeting like a strict drill sergeant, tracking every cent that comes in and goes out. I've cut back on everything: no takeout, no new clothes, no nights out. I cook at home, buy generic brands, and hunt for deals. but even then, it feels like a losing battle. Unexpected expenses, a broken phone, a medical bill, or car repairs, can throw everything off balance. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing something wrong. Maybe if I worked harder, saved more, or was smarter with money, I wouldn't be in this mess. But the truth is, I'm doing everything I can. The system around me is what's broken: wages that don't keep pace with inflation, housing costs that skyrocket, a job market that's unstable. It's not a personal failure, it's a structural trap. And still, despite everything, I cling to my dreams. I imagine a future where I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, where I can breathe without that weight pressing down on my chest. A future where I can take care of myself, help those I love, and maybe even save a little for the things that make life joyful. Sometimes, that hope feels fragile, but it's all I have. Sharing this isn't easy, but maybe by putting it into words, it helps to lighten the load just a little. If you're reading this and feel the same way, know you're not alone. We're all trying to find a way through this, holding on, day by day, hoping for something better. Because even when the system feels rigged, even when the numbers don't add up, our dreams are still worth fighting for. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.